We're on the banks of the Blackwater and on the foothills of the Knockmill Down. It's a wooded area with beautiful trees. We're just quite near the sea as well, so we've mountain, sea and river, and it is very, very picturesque. It's a big rowing area, you know. And there was Jack Barron. He won the great race in Henley, the four of them, which is a famous rowing area in England. John Barron. That's my grandfather, John Barron, who started the bakery in 1887. And he and his wife, Nora, had 12 children, and my father was the second youngest. And he was born in 1904, and he fathered me when he was 57. I'm only 25. So that's it, and that's the rowing crew as well, because they were known as the famous four in Cappoquin because they won a very prestigious race over in Henley back in 1911. Imagine, because he was born somewhere 1888 or 1889, and he was my uncle, and he was in the Battle of Jutland in the First World War. We had a celebration recently because it's 100 years since he was in the Battle of Jutland on the ship the Revenge. He was the petty officer of the English Navy. Jack inherited it, and he hadn't much interest in it, and it was a much bigger business than it was when my father took it over, because he gambled a lot and he drank. So it was in a very bad way when my father took it over, and my father had worked for him for so long and he never paid him, that the solicitor insisted that the property be signed over to my father in lieu of money owed to him. Otherwise the place would have been sold. His sister and himself built up the business again. She was a very good businesswoman and he was a very good baker. So then it fell to me, so I was the next generation, and Joe. I fulfilled my dream because I added a coffee shop to it, and I had it when I did that 33 years ago. I had 25 seating, but to make it viable for my nieces, it had to have a 50 seating. So we did that back in 2013. We made it bigger. That's why it's much more modern. It's only that way since 2013. I bought it from a lady who lived across the road there. Her father was a saddler. He made saddles for horses and all the, so I called it the Saddler's Tea Shop when I added that onto my inheritance. So then we made it bigger, and our nieces took it over in April this year, 2016, Emma and Aoife. Yeah. So we wish them success and hope it'll be a successful business for them, and that it will go from strength to strength. I've been doing it for 42 years and longer, I suppose, yes. So baking is a lovely occupation or way of making a living, because it's very fulfilling, because it's only as good as the passion you put into it when you're making it. My father used to make this recipe. I worked with him for a while in the bakery. He died in 1980. It was great to work with him, and he was so proud of baking. He had worked with his father, and my father was born in 1904. So it is a long time ago. It's nice to be the same family doing the same thing in the same place for 130 years. So it's some history, and we still have stayed small, because our motto has always been small is beautiful. When things get bigger, quality moves out of it, and the idea of money, making money, becomes a bigger part of it, because you have more people working and you have more overheads, and it becomes a whole different engine. So that's why we love small family businesses, and we only leave our money with family businesses. Okay, I have 25 grams of salt here, which goes in. And I have 9 grams of sugar, which I weighed off earlier. And I need 300 mils of water. I need 600 grams of sourdough. I'm going to just mix that up slightly first. It's a lot of work in this world of today. So the bakers we have are passionate about what they do. They love their job, because if they didn't, the proof of the pudding would be when they come out. I went to college in Dublin and I did domestic science. I was really trained to do demonstrations like what I'm doing now, so that I would show people how to make bread and that. But I baked here with my father. I came home working in 1975 and he died in 1980. So I was 5 years working with my father as an adult, yes. I'm only 21. We all worked in the bakery, yes, and we all had a passion for baking. I'm the youngest of 5 girls, but I was the one, all the others got off and got married. I was the only one that was interested in taking over the bakery. So I didn't marry my husband until 1993. He came and worked in the bakery with me, and I really believed that the bakery wouldn't be here now only for Joe, because he brought in marketing skills and things to help it in a different way. This is just the first kneading, and you have to leave it sit then for 12 hours to rise. It just comes on its own. So that basically is the sourdough. And then we leave it sit here in front of the oven, and I cover it with a sacking. It's a very old-fashioned thing. Chester cake, it's spicy and it's fruit, and it's sweet, and it has a lovely shortcut biscuit pastry. And that then is caramel slice, and their coffee slices are very popular. The Chester cake we're famous for. Coffee cakes, a fruit cake, sultana cake. Yeah, and then you've chocolate biscuit cake, and pear and almond, and that's a polenta, an orange and almond. Apple tart, which is a very Irish thing, and apricot biscuits. Apple sponge, and that's apple tart, just in things. So which would you like? This was the Saddler's tea shop. When we bought the premises, which was adjacent to the bakery, it was a Saddler's. The Saddler used to work here. So I called it the Saddler's tea shop to remember him. This was my baby. I added this on to what I inherited. I fulfilled my dream in life. I made it to what it is today, and it has got recognition in lots and lots of awards. And I suppose when you achieve what you had a passion for in life and did it well, and to come out the other end healthy and ready to enjoy the rest of my life, it is a great fulfillment for any human being. And it's so important to do what you love to do. But to find that can be difficult. But I certainly was passionate about the bakery. I had it always. Back in the 70s and early 80s, there was what you call a price war with bread. You had a breakthrough in bread making. Bakers got together and put up big factory bakers, and they started making processed bread, and bread that was baked in under 20 minutes. As a result of that, they used bread to bring people into supermarkets, at bread being half the price. Now it was a different product, and back in the early 80s people weren't able to differentiate between good bread and real bread and processed bread. It affected an awful lot of small bakeries because the purchasing power of bread went into the supermarket and they weren't able to survive. So small family businesses like ours all closed in the late 70s, early 80s because of a whole change in culture about bread. It was brought on by people who were into making money as opposed to making bread, whereas I come from a tradition of people who were making quality bread to nourish people. It was about the quality of the bread, but then it became an object to produce something at a very low cost. And if you buy something at a low cost, somebody is paying the price. So the product was paying the price there because people weren't nourished as well, and people have grown intolerant to wheat, which of course is something that has come through bread not being given the proper time to break down the enzymes in the flour so that it's made more digestible for people. So it was like we had this speed thing, you know, it's organic as opposed to rush things up and
They're losing all the flavour, all the nourishment to keep people healthy, which is the most important thing in our lives. This is the wonderful thing about the farmers' market. It is the comeback to the community, because when you come to the farmers' market, they're not rushing. It's a different environment to shopping than anywhere else. They're supporting the local people who they know live out the road, or a farmer who's growing some vegetables, or a man who has lovely free-range eggs and they make beautiful things. So people come to support it because they're leaving their money in their own community, and that's a great thing. My father had that principle, put your money where you get it. If the man selling the draper up the road came in and bought your panloaf, he went up and ordered his suit from him when he needed new clothes. We would always have to go to people who supported us to buy things, and that helped everybody. And then if you had a problem, it's great, you can go back to them and say, look, I'd prefer if this was this or that was that, you know. So it's nice to know where you're putting your money, but it's the greed. You buy this and then you want more and more and more. That's what destroys people. So it's nice always to keep your independence and your freedom from being controlled by some big institution like a bank. It's too focused on just money, money. You have to make money, and don't get me wrong, but if you're in it solely for making money, then that'll be the end of it. Nothing goes on forever, but I've done my bit. It is a sense of community, yeah. Everybody knows about Barron's Bakery. They love our bread, and it's great.